Hello everyone, this is Meenakshi Dilip Birari, working as a system professor at Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samaj, Nasik. Today we are going to discuss about environmental policies and practices. In previous lecture, we have studied Environment Protection Act regarding air pollution and its control. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss Water Prevention and Pollution Control Act, Wildlife Protection Act, and also Forest Conservation Act. First of all, let us see Water Prevention and Pollution Control Act. We know that water is an essential element of human living. It is very useful only when it is unpolluted. It is in short supply since 97% of world's water constitutes seawater, and this seawater which is unfit for consumption. Polluted or contaminated water is injurious to health. So, in order to prevent and control the pollution of water, the Indian Parliament passed the Water Act in 1974. The main purpose of the Water Act, that is, to prevent and control the pollution of water, to maintain and restore the wholesomeness of water, the establishment of boards for prevention and control of water pollution, to confer on such boards powers to prevent and control water pollution and to maintain or restore the wholesomeness of water. So, in order to prevent and control the pollution of water, the Indian Parliament passed the Water Act in 1974. Now, the silent provisions of Water Act 1974. We know that after the Stockholm Conference on Human Environment on June 1972, it was considered appropriate to have uniform law all over country for broad environment problems. The Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974 is the first enactment by the Parliament in this direction. Water Act is enacted with the aim of prevention and control of water pollution in India. Now, what are the objectives and scope of Water Prevention Act? An act to provide for the levy and collection of access on water consumed by persons carrying on certain industries and by local authorities with a view to augment the resources of the central board and the state boards for the prevention and control of water pollution constituted under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974. This act aims at establishment of central and state pollution control board at the central level and also at state level for each state and giving powers to the members so as to enable them to carry out the purposes of its having two boards for controlling the whole law, that may be central board and also the state board. Now, what are the powers and functions of boards? First of all, the function and power of central board, that is, the main function of the central board shall be to promote cleanliness of streams and wells in different areas of the state, also advise the central government on any matter concerning the prevention and control of water pollution. It also lay down standards for stream and well. So these are the functions and power of central board. Whereas the functions and power of state boards are: every state board shall be bound by such a directions in writing as the central board or the state government may give to it, where the central government is of the opinion that any state board has defaulted in complying with any directions given by the central board under subsection. Also, one of the function, they can control the pollution, that is state. So these are the powers and functions of board, that may be for central board and also for state board. Now these are few Water Act. First one, that is 1956, the River Boards Act, enables the states to enroll the central government in setting up an advisory river board to resolve issues in interstate cooperation. Secondly, 1970, the Merchant Shipping Act, which aims to deal with waste arising from ships along the coastal areas within a specified radius. Also, 1882, the Easement Act allows private rights to use a resource, that is a groundwater, by viewing it as an attachment to the land. It also states that all surface water belongs to the state and is a state property. According to 1897, that is the Indian Fisheries Act, establishes two sets of penal offence whereby the government can sue any person who uses dynamite or other explosive substance in any way with intent to catch or destroy any fish or poisonous fish in order to kill. Also 1991, that is the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification, puts regulations on various activities including construction. It also gives some protection to the backwaters and estuaries. So these are few Water Act. In 1974, that is the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, establishes an institutional structure for preventing and abating water pollution. It establishes standards for water quality and effluent. The CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board, was constituted under this act, that is in 1974. After that, 1977, the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Cess Act, it provides for the levy and collection of fees on water consuming industries and local authorities. Now what are the preventive measures and control of water pollution? So there are the powers which are applied by the government. Power state government to restrict the application of the act to certain areas. Power to obtain information. Power to take samples of effluents and procedures to be followed in connection therewith. Reports of the results of analysis on samples taken under section 21. Power of entry and inspection. Prohibition on use of stream or well for disposal of polluting matter. Restrictions on new outlets and new discharges. Next to that, penalties and procedure. So according to section 41 for non-compliances, the section 20B or C, it gives the penalty about 3 months or rupees 10,000 or both. Also fine rupees 5,000 per day. According to section 32 1C, 33(2) or 33A, there may be about 1.5 years to 6 years and additional fine of rupees 5,000 per day. According to section 41(2), 2 to 7 years for failure continue beyond 1 year. So these are the different things related to penalties and procedure. So that is section 41. After that, section 42, which is the penalty for certain act. Section 43 penalty for contraventions of provisions of Section 24. Section 44 penalty for contravention of Section 25 or Section 26, and Section 45, that is enhanced penalty after previous conviction. Now let us see the second one, Wildlife Protection Act. We know that our country India is one of the 12 mega biodiversity in the world with about 47,000 plant species. India occupies 10th place in the world and 4th place in Asia. There are about 15,000 flowering plants which accounts for 6% of world's total. The country also has many non-flowering plants such as algae, ferns, etc. India also 89,000 species of animals as well as rich variety of fish in fresh and marine waters. The wildlife, it includes all undomesticated lives from microorganisms to vegetation and fungi as well. We are dependent on wildlife in one way or another. The clothes we wear, the food we eat, the houses we build, the paper we write and the air we breathe all come from nature and also from wildlife. So, we are dependent on wildlife in one way or another, and wildlife, it includes all undomesticated lives from microorganisms to vegetation and also to the fungi. Now, what are the major dangers to wildlife? Mostly the wildlife, it is affected due to climatic change, unregulated hunting and poaching, also pollution, overexploitation, deforestation, population and use of plastics. India owns an immense variety of flora and fauna. Wildlife is one of our basic and natural resources that satisfies the needs. Therefore, this resource must be conserved, preserved and protected for the existence of mankind. We know that we are dependent on wildlife in one way or another, and India owns an immense variety of flora and fauna. Also, the wildlife is one of our basic and natural resource that satisfies our needs. Therefore, its conservation, preservation and protection, it is very important. Now, what are threats to wildlife? We know that there is habitat loss due to the population growth, fast industrialization, urbanization and modernization. So, all these factors have contributed a large scale destruction of natural habitat of plants and also of animals. Secondly, indiscriminate hunting, that is also one of the factor. Indiscriminate killing and poaching of wild animals for food, horn, fur, tusk, etc. has resulted in reduction and even extinction of many wild species. Also, the introduction of exotic species. Many native species have known to disappear and their existence is under threat because of the introduction of number of exotic and alien species. So, due to the habitat loss, indiscriminate hunting, introduction of exotic species, the wildlife, it is in danger. Also, pollution, which is one of the important factor. Air pollution, water, soil and noise pollution of the magnitude and toxicity never seen before is the major factor. But the natural habitats have been destroyed or damaged by the activities such as the indiscriminate use of synthetic materials, release of radiations and oil spills in the sea, generation of effluents and waste of various kinds and toxicity and their unscientific disposal. So pollution is also one of the threat to wildlife. To maintain the ecological balance, the conservation of wildlife, it is very important. Also the different things like beauty, economic value, scientific value, ecotourism. For this also the conservation of wildlife, protection of wildlife, it is important. Economic value, when we consider wildlife, it provides number of things like timber, fur, tusk, ivory, leather, honey, etc. Scientific value related to wildlife, that will be gene pool for the scientists to carry breeding programmers in agriculture, animal husbandry and also in fishery. So conservation, protection of wildlife, it is very important. Also to maintain ecological balance, the conservation, it is necessary. Now what are the causes of wildlife destruction? One of the cause, that is habitat loss. Extensive human demand resulted into habitat loss. Rainforests are the main habitats. Tropical rainforests are cleared for wood, also for timber resources, development of petroleum resources, mineral resources, etc. Second most critical factor in species extinction. Now there are 20% less forest cover than existed 300 years ago. So there is reduction in the forest cover as compared to existed 300 years forest cover. Also there is the loss of habitat due to human activities. Then poaching and hunting, another major cause of animal species extinction. Poaching and illegal trade in animal are of about $10 to 15 million per year worldwide. National and international wildlife trade. Then climatic change or also global warming, pollution, introduced species, farmer or rancher shootings, etc. These are also the different causes of wildlife destruction. Now what are the effects of wildlife depletion? So due to depletion in wildlife, there is unbalanced food chain and ecosystem. Also reduction in rare wild animals. There is impact on biodiversity, loss of economic value. Also the human life, it is in danger due to depletion of wildlife, loss in genetic information. So these are few endangered species of animals. So wildlife destruction also having the effect, one of the effect, human life, it is in danger. Also these are the species which are endangered. These are the endangered species of plants. Now, what is the legal framework which is useful for the conservation of wildlife, especially the legal framework for wildlife conservation in India? Many people are under the impression that India does not have strong wildlife conservation laws. On the contrary, we have some of the most stringent legislations to protect wildlife and habitats. The government of India has introduced various types of legislation in response to the growing destruction of wildlife and forest. These are the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, which is last amended in 2006, National Wildlife Action Plan, the Environment Protection Act, the Biological Diversity Act, the Indian Fisheries Act, the Indian Forest Act, the Forest Conservation Act. So, the Government of India has introduced various types of legislation in response to the growing destruction of wildlife and also for forest. The Wildlife Protection Act, that is 1972, which is last amended in 2006. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 is an important statute that provides a powerful legal framework for prohibition of hunting, protection and management of wildlife habitats, establishment of protected areas, regulation and control of trade in parts and products derived from wildlife, also the management of zoos. The Wildlife Protection Act provides for several categories or protected areas or reserves, that may be national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, conservation reserves, community reserves. Apart from protected area establishment, other important aspects of the Wildlife Protection Act include procedures for the appointment of state wildlife authorities and wildlife boards and regulations of trade in wildlife products and the prevention, detection and punishment of violations of the WLPA, that is Wildlife Protection Act. So we should remember the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 is an important statute that provides a powerful legal framework, and it is useful for the prohibition of hunting, protection and management of wildlife habitats, establishment of protected areas, and also regulation and control of trade in parts and products derived from wildlife. So apart from protected area establishment, that Wildlife Protection Act include the procedures for the appointment of state wildlife authorities and also wildlife boards. So the Wildlife Protection Act, that is 1972, is an act of the Parliament of India enacted on 9th September 1972. So we should remember this date. The Wildlife Protection Act enacted on 9th September 1972. It provides for protection of wild animals, birds and plants, and for matters connected therewith or ancillary or incidental thereto. It extends to whole of India except Jammu and Kashmir. It has 6 schedules which give varying degrees of protection. Now there are some definitions or terms which are used under the Wildlife Protection Act. First one, that is animal. According to this act, animal, it includes amphibians, birds, mammals and reptiles. Secondly, the definition or the term for animal article, that means any article made from any captive or wild animal. Also, hunting, it includes capturing, killing, poisoning, trapping, injuring animals, birds or reptiles. Trophy, that means the whole or any part of any captive or wild animal which has been kept or preserved by any means. So that are nothing but the examples of trophy. So these terms are also used under the Act. The wildlife, according to Wildlife Protection Act, what is wildlife? Simply, it includes any animal, bees, butterflies, also fish, moths, aquatic or land vegetation which forms part of any habitat. So wildlife, it includes animal, bees, butterflies, crustaceans, moths, aquatic or land vegetation, crustacean which forms part of any habitat. So these are the some terms which are used under the Act. Then national parks. A national park is protected area of land in which a typical ecosystem with all its wild plants and animals are protected and preserved in natural surroundings. As of April 2017, there were 103 national parks comprising a total area of 40,500 square kilometer. Then the national park in Uttarakhand, established in 1936, was the first national park in India. So we should remember that Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, established in 1936, was the first national park in India. Then these are few examples of national parks. The first, which is in the state Uttarakhand, the animals which are protected in the park, national park, that is tiger. Secondly, Kaziranga National Park, which is in Assam. Then also Kanha National Park, which is in Madhya Pradesh. Sundarbans Tiger Reserves in West Bengal. Gir National Park in Gujarat. Bandipur National Park, Karnataka. Desert National Park, Rajasthan, like that. So these are few national parks. Here we have represented here that are nothing but the species which are critically endangered. Then wildlife sanctuary. What is sanctuary? A sanctuary is a protected area of land, wetland or sea reserved for the conservation of wild animals, birds and plants. As of April 2017, India has 543 wildlife sanctuaries comprising a total area. Then hunting of any kind is prohibited in sanctuaries. Private ownership rights over sanctuaries and limited human activities may be granted provided they do not interfere with the normal activities that may be in feeding, nesting, breeding of wildlife. So we should remember India has 543 wildlife sanctuaries, and when we consider the first example, that is in Rajasthan, that animal or the bird which are protected, Siberian crane in Rajasthan. Also Manas Wildlife Sanctuary in Assam. Then Periyar Sanctuary, Valmiki Nagar Tiger Reserve, which is in Bihar. Also the different examples for the sanctuary. Sanctuary is nothing but a protected area of land, wetland or sea reserved for the conservation of wild animals, birds and plants. So in Tamil Nadu, that sanctuary it is for elephant, four-horned antelope. Also Andhra Pradesh, the sanctuary is for tiger, panther. In Kerala, that is for elephant. In Rajasthan, Odisha, Assam, Jammu Kashmir, the sanctuaries where the animals or birds are protected. Now the next part, that is biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves are a specific category of protected area of land wherein tribal people native to the area are an integral part of the system. Its concept was conceived by the UN, United Nations, and was launched in 1975 as a part of UNESCO's Man and Biosphere program. In biospheres, various uses of land are permitted by dividing it into three distinct zones, that is core zone, buffer zone and transition zone. So these are few examples of biosphere reserves: Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, Gulf of Mannar, that are biosphere reserves, Sundarbans National Park, Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserves, etc. So biosphere reserves are a specific category of protected area of land wherein tribal people native to the area are an integral part of the system. Now, what are the projects undertaken by Indian government for wildlife protection? We know that wildlife is an important component of biodiversity. To prevent the extinction of species, various projects have been initiated by the Indian government, such as Project Tiger, Project Elephant, Indian Rhino Vision 2020, Crocodile Conservation Project, Sea Turtle Project, Vulture Conservation Project. So these are the projects undertaken by the Indian government for wildlife protection. Now there are some important wildlife conservation societies of India. Keeping in view the recent human encroachment, the Indian government did take effective initiatives to conserve wildlife in the country, and amongst it most commendable initiatives is the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, which prohibits trade of rare and endangered species. However, this is not the only laudatory measure taken by the government of India. There is so much more that needs to be told about the various wildlife conservation societies that have helped the country maintain its rich wildlife. Here is a glance at the important wildlife conservation societies of India. These are the Corbett Foundation, Wildlife Institute of India, Wildlife Protection Society of India, Wildlife Conservation Trust, Wildlife SOS, World Wildlife Fund WWF, Center for Wildlife Studies. So these are the important wildlife conservation societies of India. So you should remember the names related to wildlife conservation societies of India. So Indian government did take the effective initiatives to conserve wildlife in the country. These are the societies of India for the conservation of wildlife. First, the Corbett Foundation, which involves the actions taken by passionate men and women who wish to protect wildlife and bring forth harmony. It works for protection of other regions such as Pangawat, Kutch and Kanha as well. Also, Wildlife Institute of India WII was established in Dehradun, Uttarakhand, India in 1982 with an aim to provide training and courses and promote wildlife research and management. Then Wildlife Protection Society of India, which is an award-winning wildlife photographer and filmmaker. Wildlife Protection Society of India works to manage the intractable wildlife crisis in India. Wildlife Conservation Trust WCT, it works to protect the vulnerable animals and biodiversity of India through spreading awareness across forest departments and NGOs. It also trains individuals for wildlife conservation. Wildlife SOS India, which is established in 1995. World Wildlife Fund WWF. India started working at Hornbill House Mumbai. Today, WWF India happens to be the largest voluntary organization which works for wildlife as well as nature conservation. Also, the Center for Wildlife Studies, CWS, it was established in 1984 in Bengaluru with an aim to promote conservation of the tiger and other large mammals, along with equal emphasis for ecology through collaboration with state and central government. So these are the different societies for the conservation of wildlife in India. Now let us see the Forest Conservation Act. We know that forestry in India is a major environmental resource. India is one of the 10 most forest-rich countries, contributed 22% in country's area and contributed 1.7% to GDP. Forest conservation is a practice of planning and maintaining forested areas for the benefit and sustainability for the generations. So forestry in India is a major environmental resource. Now what is the historical background? Indian Forest Act of 1927, reserved forest, protected forest, also for village forest. Indian first forest policy in 1951 which focused on revenue. Then preservation of its biological diversity and genetic resources. In 1992, 73rd, 74th amendments gives states the ability to provide power to the local panchayats. When we observe the Indian Forest Act, that will be in 1927. So what is the main objective of Indian Forest Act 1927? That is to secure exclusive state control over forest to meet the demand for timber. Most of these untitled lands had traditionally belonged to the forest dwelling communities. The Act defined state ownership, regulated its use and appropriated the power to substitute or extinguish customary rights. The Act facilitates three categories of forest, which are namely reserve forest, village forest and protected forest. Reserve forests are the most protected within these categories. No rights can be acquired in reserve forest except by succession or under a grant or contract with the government. Felling trees, grazing cattle, removing forest products, quarrying, fishing and hunting are punishable with a fine or imprisonment. So reserve forests are the most protected within these categories. And the main objective of the Indian Forest Act is to secure exclusive state control over forest to meet the demand for timber. Now the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 was acted to control deforestation, and the penalties for offences in reserve forest that are no person is allowed to set fire or clearings, cattle are not permitted, no permission to collect any forest product. These are the penalties for offences in reserve forest. Then protected forest, there are no permissions to do anything for trees which are mentioned in a act. So these are the according to Forest Conservation Act of 1980 which was acted to control deforestation. Now the Forest Conservation Act 1980 in order to check rapid deforestation due to forest land being released by state governments for agriculture, industry and other development projects, the federal government enacted the Forest Conservation Act in 1980 with an amendment in 1988. The act made the prior approval of the federal government necessary for de-reservation of reserved forest, logging and for use of forest land for non-forest purposes. This powerful legislation has, to a large extent, curtailed the indiscriminate logging and release of forest land for non-forestry purposes by state governments. While the federal government imposed such strict restrictions, it did not simultaneously evolve a mechanism to compensate state governments for loss of timber logging revenues. Also, the Supreme Court of India has currently imposed a complete ban on the release of forest land for non-forestry activities without the prior approval of the federal government. Now, what are the responsibilities of an individual? Acquaint yourself with the laws and rules. Also participate in preservation of greenery. Use better ecologically sensitive public transport and bicycle tracks. Do not litter in a forest area. Be a part of the programs which are useful to environment. So these are few recommendations. Love towards Mother Earth, nature and animals. Conservation laws for wildlife should be practiced properly. Strict actions against who do not abide laws. Non-bailable arrest to person found accused. And non-industrial activities besides reserve forests. So these are few recommendations. In short, forest and wildlife are the renewable natural resources, and if all the plant programs are effectively executed, in a few decades the flora and the fauna will start flourishing. So it is our duty to protect and conserve all the natural resources, and also the environment protection, it is important. So we have studied the Environment Protection Act, also the environment laws related to water, air, wildlife and also for forest. This Environment Conservation Act plays an important role in maintaining a balance between the needs and availability of the natural resources in India. Nowadays, when the world is suffering from deadly threats like global warming, more acts like this should be enforced. Even though there are many drawbacks of the Environmental Protection Act 1986, there are ample of advantages too. Hopefully, this detailed article on the Environment Protection Act will help you gather all the required information about it and will let you prepare in a better manner for the exam. So, please act to the act. Thank you.